may be seated. The court calls case 2007 CR 269, which is State of Ohio versus Claudia Hoerig. Defendant in this case was indicted in January 8, 2007 by the term of the Trump County Grand Jury on one count of aggravated murder and as a felony, general felony with a specification of firearm specification under sections 2903.01 and F and 2941.145 of the Ohio Revised Code. Defendant was brought into court on January 14, 2019 for trial. On January 24, 2019, after due deliberation, the defendant was found guilty of count 1 aggravated murder, felony, and a firearm specification under 2941.145. The sentencing hearing was set this date, February 8, 2019, with a pre-sentence investigation order. The court has had an opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation, although I indicate the defendant did not decline to be interviewed by our probation department. The court has also reviewed a pre-sentence sentencing memorandum on behalf of the state, along with the principles and purposes of sentencing. We are here today for sentencing. The state is in court through Mr. Watkins and Mr. Becker. The defendant is in court along with her counsel, Attorney Cornerley and Attorney Russo. Mr. Cornelli, if you'll bring your defendant forward. We are here today, Ms. Hoerig, for the purposes of your sentencing. Is there anything here or your attorneys on your behalf would like to say this court prior to sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor. On behalf of Ms. Hoerig, we recognize that any time the charge is murder or there's an unfortunate death of another, it's a tragedy, and we express our condolences for Mr. Hoerig's family. Ms. Hoerig asked me to read the following statement. She states as follows. She is not going to speak today because the press has misquoted her countless times and throughout this case. She's going to prepare a written letter to address both the family and the media, and will provide it to her public defenders to provide to the press. She feels she's been misquoted numerous times, such as when she says instantly, it's been printed easily, and Ferry and Mary. So to avoid embarrassment and misunderstandings, she'll be addressing everyone in writing at a later opportunity as to that. As to the actual sentence, Your Honor, in looking at the factors in sentencing under the Ohio Revised Code and hearing all the facts and circumstances, in this case, we believe that a sentence in the lower available range for aggravated murder with a firearm specification is appropriate. This offense is not more serious than other offenses of the similar type, in part because we believe the testimony was that the premeditation was limited in duration, and there were extenuating circumstances relating to her mental health at the time of the incident.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Mr. Hoerig, you do not wish to express anything to the court today, correct?
No, she does not.
All right, very well. Anything from the state?
Your Honor, the state in its sentencing memorandum summarizes fairly our strong position in this case. It is our recommendation to this court, considering her testimony and the totality of the evidence, that this defendant be sentenced to 25 full years to life in prison, which would be served consecutively to the 3-year gun specification for a total of 25 years to life before eligibility for parole. And that should be given full credit for time served since April 20th, 2016. Thank you.
I think you meant 28 years. Right. I understood that. All right.
I'm sorry, 28 years to life.
I understood. My understanding is we have some victim statements also. If you'll have her slide this way so that the victims can come forward.
Paul David Hoerig.
Your Honor, I'm Paul Hoerig, Carl's younger brother. Words cannot express the pain and anguish my family has endured since Carl's murder. Claudia's decision to needlessly take my brother's life with no regard for the effects it would have on others is unimaginable. The loss of my brother is beyond words. The fact Claudia so arrogantly fled to a foreign country after killing my brother has been both heartbreaking and frustrating. Knowing Claudia selfishly went on with a normal life, starting a business, and getting remarried as if nothing had happened is difficult for me to comprehend. She lived free and in the open for over 9 years while my family and I struggled to have her detained. This nightmare was followed by almost 2 years of her filing numerous appeals to stay in Brazil. Her selfish and deceptive actions of playing games with her U.S. citizenship to maintain her freedom in Brazil reveals her true character. It has been exceptionally brutal and emotionally draining for my family to have spent 10 years and 10 months fighting to have her extradited from Brazil. There have been countless days writing, calling, emailing to gain support, missing work, attending meetings, just to bring her back to the United States. It literally took the efforts of a team, family, friends, the prosecutor, law enforcement, politicians, the state and justice departments, who have spent countless time and effort over 10 years and 10 months to finally have her extradited back to the Trumbull County. Nothing this court can do will bring back my brother, but I ask this court to consider the premeditated, senseless, brutal murder of my brother. Carl selflessly served this country and was a caring father, son, brother, and friend. I ask you to consider Claudia's behavior, fleeing to a foreign country, fighting extradition, a lack of remorse, committing perjury, making false claims, and attempting to smear numerous people, including Carl, myself, and members of my family. United States officials entered into an agreement with Brazil which limited the sentence Claudia can serve in prison. This agreement was necessary to secure her extradition. I believe we should honor this agreement. Therefore, I fully support the prosecutor's recommendation of 25 years to life, plus 3 years for the gun specification. Carl was a man of honor, and he would have wanted us to honor this agreement. With that said, when the time comes, I, along with other family members, will be there to meet with the parole board to demand Claudia is treated like all other inmates. I will be there to tell Carl's story. Under the conditions, Claudia accepts full responsibility and is a model inmate. I will support parole at 30 years. I wish to express my sincerest gratitude for allowing me this opportunity to speak on behalf of my family and brother.
Hi, I'm Eva Hoerig Snowden. I'm Carl's daughter. I have spent hours and hours, 12 years really, thinking about what I would say here. My dad taught me a lot of things. He taught me that nothing is too hard to overcome, even when it seems impossible. He taught me to be positive even when I really, really don't feel like it. He taught me to just try, to go for it. And Dad made success look effortless. I wasn't old enough to know that probably wasn't the case. So I have to assume that how to do that effortlessly was a future lesson. Dad taught me everything in life is either a lesson or a joke, and if you're really lucky, it's both. He taught me respect others, and respect yourself, respect knowledge, beauty, and joy, respect the world, and it will show you what is actually important. I want to list every moment that it has hurt me that Dad's gone. I want to talk about my beautiful kids he never met. I want to talk about grief and missed opportunities, but I would never be able to stop. I want to list all the ways listening to Claudia excuse her actions for the last year was inaccurate and unbearable, how it was unfair to my family, my dad, and myself. I want desperately to pull things apart, analyze them, and tell the whole world how ridiculous everything she said was. but my dad wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't be very happy with me if I did it either. He was better than that, so the best I can do is listen to his lessons and be the daughter he raised me to be. I have pages and pages of notes. I realize now that I will never have the words, but the gist of it is this. My dad was the greatest, most wonderful, best ever, should have won a trophy dad. I never told him that. Maybe I didn't know it yet, or maybe I was too young to understand. But I never told him, and it is completely and totally unfair that he isn't in my family or my family's life anymore. And my dad taught me one more lesson. He taught me that sometimes other people know better than you do. So I completely support the prosecution's recommendation. Thank you.
Picture. Your Honor, Megan Murphy. Thank you for taking the time to hear from us today. My name is Megan. I'll be reading on behalf of my grandparents, Ed and Fran Hoerig. My grandparents raised 3 outstanding men, my dad, Steve, and my 2 uncles, Carl and Paul. When my Uncle Carl was brutally murdered, I did not have any children of my own yet. Now I have 2 sweet little boys. I had no idea at the time what it was like to have love for a child. You would do anything, even die for them, and I cannot fathom the pain my grandparents feel every day since they buried their child. They are incredible parents, and I hope to raise my boys as perfect as they raised their own. My grandparents wrote, Carl was born December 24th, 1963. The Christmas seasons are now hard to deal with, as all of the holidays are. He loved to celebrate with all our families. Carl was a brilliant, amazing, kind, loving person who focused on the best qualities in everyone and overlooked the flaws. We won't get to see what new avenue Carl would pursue in education and careers. Sadly, Carl didn't get to guide his children into adulthood and meet his grandchildren. They would have been the joy of his life. Claudia took Carl's life. We have lived with this reality close to 12 years, and the thought that as parents we should have done more to protect him. Ed and I feel this pain every day. When we told Carl we really feared for his life, he said, "Don't worry, I've got this." Carl planned to move out of his house after Claudia appeared in Ravenna Court March 13, 2007 on an OVI. She was nervous about going to court, and he wanted to be there to support her. That was Carl. He would be there for her. Even though we saw the signs, it was hard for us to really believe someone could be so evil. We have listened to Claudia try to trash Carl and his family. The people who knew Carl know how he was and how good his character. Our retirement years have been spent in the quest to bring Claudia to justice. Claudia has shown no remorse for what she has done. God help the next person she perceives as doing her wrong. We support Prosecutor Dennis Watkins 100% in any decision he makes pertaining to Claudia Hoerig. Thank you.
I have a copy for you. Roxy Vaughn. Your Honor, thank you for the opportunity to let the family be heard. I was asked by my mother and father to read their impact statement. They are Kim and Steve Hoerig, brother of Carl. I am their daughter, Roxy. Most of us by 40 years old have dealt with the loss of someone they truly loved. That pain is indescribable. But we go through a grieving process and it gets easier in time. But even now, when you think of that loved one and the happy time you spent with them, it brings a tear to the eye. Claudia thinks she's the smartest person in the room. Not this room. No one believes her lies. Claudia is a manipulator and a vindictive liar. She has no remorse, no shame, no morals. She is evil. Her testimony was meant to literally hurt each member of our family. She lied about each and every one of us, and especially Carl, one of the kindest, gentlest, forgiving people we have known. She has lived as a free person in Brazil for 9 years after killing Carl. 9 years of freedom.
9 years of freedom that Carl nor any of us had. From the day Carl was found, the friends and family of Carl were sentenced to a lifetime of grieving. Your Honor, when we are considering her sentence, please consider the prolonged pain this family has and will suffer. No, there's no amount of time she could spend in jail that will bring Carl back. But maybe we can move on our healing process knowing she's behind bars. The sentence recommended by the prosecutor, Dennis Watkins, was negotiated to Brazil to extradite Claudia. Claudia was counting on Brazil not to extradite her. Without prosecutor Dennis Watkins' agreement with Brazil, we would have never gotten her back. Honoring the agreement may open the door to a better extradition treaty between the United States and Brazil and help other victims get the justice they are looking for in much less than the 12 years we waited. Thank you for listening. Kim and Steve Hoerig. Thank you.
Any further statements, Mr. Watkins? Mr. Watkins, any further statements?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else from the state at this time?
No, Your Honor.
All right. We bring back over. Ms. Hoerig, we are here today for the long-awaited culmination of the worst possible circumstances contemplated in our criminal system. After nearly 12 years, you have been convicted of the most heinous act of aggravated murder of your husband, Major Carl Hoerig. The family of Carl Hoerig is here in an attempt to gain some closure in regard to this long journey toward justice. Now, from the beginning, your actions spoke volumes. You never denied killing Major Hoerig. However, your statements always evaded taking sole responsibility for your action. Your statements under oath at trial acknowledged that you delivered a final blow to the head of Major Hoerig at close range, yet you refused to acknowledge any culpability. The court further notes that you never showed actual remorse for your actions. You attempted to deflect the blame at each and every turn. In fact, the only time you showed any genuine emotion was when speaking of your family. The jury found you guilty of aggravated murder with prior calculation and design, and it is now the time for this court to impose sentence for that crime. Taking into consideration the principles and purposes of sentencing, pursuant to 292911, the court finds that you do not have any substantial prior criminal record. However, in regard to the sentencing guidelines under Section 292912 of the Revised Code regarding the seriousness of a criminal act, the court finds there is no more serious action than aggravated murder. Furthermore, you committed the aggravated murder of your husband with advanced plotting and preparation, as demonstrated by your actions in the days leading up to the murder. Your actions clearly demonstrated prior calculation and design. In addition, your relationship to the victim, to wit, your husband, must also be considered. You made a conscious decision to end the life of your husband without any consideration of his life or the lives of his children or his family. The court has considered these factors along with your lack of any genuine remorse or accountability. Unfortunately, nothing this court does can bring back Major Hoerig or lessen the physical and emotional loss to his family and friends. Closure is a word often used, but perhaps never truly attained in these instances. The family and friends of Major Hoerig will never forget him. Perhaps their memories of him will be some small comfort in remembering the man they loved, the man that served our country in the United States Air Force. But they will never forget that it was your heinous actions that took him away. Now, Ms. Hoerig, your sentence shall be as follows. As to the crime of aggravated murder, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Sections 292902 and 03, the court sentences you to a term of life imprisonment with parole eligibility after a full 25 years. In regard to the firearm specification under 41.145, the court sentences you to 3 years of mandatory incarceration to be served prior to and consecutive with the underlying offense, for a total sentence of life imprisonment with parole eligibility after 28 full years. You are further ordered to pay the costs of this action. Now, the court further notifies you that post-release control is mandatory if you are released before serving the life sentence on count 1. And the maximum possible post-release period is equal to the length of the life sentence imposed on aggravated murder in count 1, as well as the consequences of violating the conditions of post-release control imposed by the parole board. You are ordered to serve as part of this sentence any term of post-release control imposed by the parole board and any prison term for violation of that post-release control. A violation of any parole rule or condition may result in a more restrictive sanction while released, an increased duration of post-release supervision up to the maximum set above, and or re-imprisonment for a period of time equal to the life sentence imposed for aggravated murder in count 1. Now, if you commit another felony while subject to a period of post-release control or by some other means, you violate the conditions of post-release control, you may be sent back to prison to serve out the remainder of the life sentence imposed for aggravated murder, for the aggravated murder offense. Now, you are further instructed that certain inmates are eligible to receive days of credit against their prison sentence for each completed month of productive participation in an educational or employment program developed by ODRC with specific standards for performance by prisoners. Some inmates, including those confined for sex offenses and the most serious first or second degree felonies or homicides, may not be eligible for this credit. Furthermore, while you're in prison, you shall not ingest or be injected with any drug of abuse. You shall submit to random drug testing, and the results of any test administered shall indicate you did not ingest and were not injected with any drug of abuse. Now, the court further notifies you that you have been granted credit for the time incarcerated in the Trumbull County Jail pursuant to these charges for a subtotal of 386 days from January 18, 2018 to this date, as well as a subtotal of 638 days for the time served incarcerated in Brazil from April 20th, 2016 until January 18th, 2018, for a total credit of time served of 1,024 days. Now, you have been convicted of aggravated murder with a firearm specification by a trial to jury. You have an automatic right to appeal. If you do not have the funds to employ an attorney, one will be appointed at no cost. If you do not have the funds to have a record supplied to the Court of Appeals, a record will be supplied at cost. Do you wish to appeal?
She does, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Corneli, I'll ask you to make sure a timely notice of appeal is filed.
We will do so, Your Honor.
All right, very well. Anything further from the state at this time?
Your Honor, we approach.
All right.
Just remember the microphone. All those microphones are on.
Oh, you did, okay. I didn't know that. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Anything from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor, we'd ask the court waive costs. Ms. Hoerig is indigent and has no prospects for employment.
Costs are waived. All right. Defendant is remanded to the Trumbull County Jail, where she will be transported to the Trumbull County by the Trumbull County Sheriff's Office to commence his prison term at the Ohio Reformatory for Women at Marysville, Ohio, this day. And we are adjourned.
Please rise.
Weber, I got some paperwork.
You may be seated.
That's fine.